Never missed the opportunity. Well, you know the phrase I'm talking about. Never, I'll think of it while we're talking. More Indians are turning to mobile payments as India struggles with a shortage of cash. The crisis started around a month ago when the government abruptly pulled the two largest rupee notes from circulation. It was the 500 and the 1,000 rupee. Now, they actually account for 86% of all cash in the country. Harold Montgomery is the chief executive of MoneyOnMobile, one of India's biggest mobile payment companies. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Richard. It's great to be here.
How much of a disaster was this policy, not in its intent, but it's in its execution?
This is a very difficult moment for India. People throughout the country are struggling with substituting their old cash for new cash. Let me give you a sense of the scale of the problem. There's 1.2 billion people in India. Every single one of them is affected by this policy decision simultaneously. That's very rare in human history. We're talking about 23 billion banknotes that have to be exchanged. 8 billion 15s and 15 billion 500s and 8 billion 100s. It's a huge, huge task. Farmers can't get their crops to market. There could be food shortages later. So commerce has really come to a halt in many cases.
So are you accepting those notes for people to charge their money on mobile accounts?
Only banks are allowed to accept old currency for new currency. So our audience is at the lower end of the pyramid. They're mostly dealing in hundreds and 50s anyway. So this problem isn't as exaggerated where my company operates. We're dealing with the unbanked. But for many, many people, this is really a constraint on commerce in everyday life.
Where do you see the cashless society of India, which is so much based, as you just pointed out, on small denominations, ordinary traders, ordinary people, frankly, money in a sock under the bed in most cases?
Right.
Where do you see the growth potential?
Almost everyone in India has a reservoir of cash in the home that they're now trying to exchange for new currency. But what the government's trying to do is to force everyone into the banking system at even an elementary or entry level and to force digital transactions. And there's a lot of reasons for it. Stopping black money is one, as you mentioned, but stopping counterfeit is another. I've seen estimates of 5 to 8% of all the notes in circulation in India are actually counterfeit. So that's a huge problem.
So the volume of transactions that you are now seeing as a result of this this policy, this change, how would we characterize it?
It's growing exponentially. We're seeing transactions across the board at all digital payments companies moving forward. I was in India for the policy change. The next day, you couldn't buy a cup of coffee with cash if it was a 500 or 1,000. You had to use a digital payment method. People who didn't have them yesterday are getting them today. Smartphone sales are growing because they enable digital payments more easily.
So when I say others' misfortune is your good fortune, I mean, I'm not being nasty.
It's an extraordinary stochastic market opportunity for my company and others similarly situated.
I admire your honesty, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Richard, thanks for having me.
Now, smartphone apps.